Hello, I'm Sean Skinner. Welcome to this video series on checking for ice hockey. This video series has been a 3-year exhaustive research project on the topic of checking. I've gathered principles, techniques, and drills on checking from over 50 years of books, videos, and coaching symposiums. I've relied heavily on materials from George Kingston, Kevin Constantine, and the printed materials and videos from Canadian Hockey and USA Hockey. For the first time, I've included a bibliography at the end of each video in this series so that players and coaches can see the volume and the depth of the research. I've endeavored to list these techniques and principles in a scientific teaching progression to enable coaches to teach more effectively and players to fully understand why, when, and how to use these checking techniques. Many players, coaches, parents, and fans do not understand checking. They refer to checking as the violent part of the game and limit checking to all hard-hitting body contact. There are actually 5 different types of checks. Positioning checks, which is the first line of defense. Skating checks, which is the second line of defense. Stick checks, which is the third line of defense. Body blocks, which is the fourth line of defense, and body checks, which is the fifth or last line of defense. All of these types of checks require an extremely high level of skating skill to execute. The skating that is particular to checking is lateral movement, and usually this lateral movement is done while going backwards. Humans don't move well laterally in any sport, and that is why so much practice is needed on these skills. Also, agility is required. Agility is defined as the ability to change directions quickly. So while moving backwards, a player has to move laterally and quickly to change direction and maintain a position to keep the opponent in check or to apply a particular check. Checking occurs when the team or individual is on defense. When a defensive player uses their individual checking skills to play a recurring game situation, it is called an individual defensive tactic. Here is a hockey pyramid to define what I am talking about. There is a technical or skill side to checking and a tactical or tactic side to checking. This video series is only concerned with the technical checking principles or checking skills. To see how these skills are used in recurring game situations, get my videotapes on individual defensive tactics. Forwards think their role is offense only, and they don't need defensive checking principles. But actually, if your team does not have the puck, everyone's on defense and needs to learn checking skills and tactics. Yes, defensemen spend most of the game applying checking skills through defensive tactical situations, and they don't get the praise they deserve because they're not scoring the big goals. But the defensemen are the quarterbacks of ice hockey, recovering the puck from the opposition and making the leading pass to the scoring play. Think about it. The wide receiver does not get the praise that the quarterback does. Yet we've put so much emphasis on scoring goals that players do not learn proper checking skills and defensive tactics because it's not praised. Checking is as important to defensive play as stick handling, passing, and shooting are to offensive play. The objectives of defensive play are to limit the time and space of the puck carrier, to force the offense to a poor ice position, to prevent scoring, and to regain puck possession. The purpose of checking is to take the puck away from the opponent or to keep the opponent from maintaining puck control to make a play. It's not about slamming or hurting the opponent. There's a definite art and science behind using checking to win the game. Let's look at the checking flowchart. I have made a flowchart so that we can define the progression of checking skills. In video 1, we are going to look at skating skills needed to execute checking skills. In video 2, we'll examine positioning to keep your opponent from scoring and how to start the process of regaining puck possession. In video 3, we'll learn how and when to use over 14 different stick checks, and also how not to use the sticks, leading to stick penalties. In video 4, we will examine how to make and build contact confidence, and onto specific body checks. Also, we will learn how to take or receive a body check, and how to avoid checks. And finally, we'll look at body checking penalties. In this first video on skating for checking, we will look at 6 chapters of skating drills. I will place emphasis on the most important skating drills. And because of the volume of drills, I cannot go into a deep explanation of each drill with all of the particulars. Most of the drills can be understood by watching. Some of the drills will be diagrammed, and for a more detailed explanation of each drill, you'll have to get the book. Also, it is important to note that these skating skills are not taught that often and not repeated enough. Coaches are always telling players they need to improve foot speed and become more agile, or that their movements are too slow. These skating drills focus on foot speed, agility, and movement in all directions, and they need to be repeated over and over under time constraints in a race or during competitions. Now when you're mirroring side to side, make sure you keep your body square to your opponent and get your hand up as you cross over. Go. Good job. Now I'd like to put special emphasis on these next two drills, the backwards lateral crossover twice each way or once each way. These are the most important skating drills when we speak of checking. Checking is usually done when we're moving backwards and laterally, and that is the hardest movement in any sport. So here, putting special emphasis on these is this movement backwards and laterally, to step over twice and stop in a strong, steady base position where we can play the opponent or push away from our body, and crossing over twice, pushing away to the other side. Crossing over, and this same drill also being done with one crossover each way. One crossover, stop. Now we're going to take a look at a series of protecting the dot drills. The opponent's going to try to get through the player standing just in front of the dot and try to reach the dot. On this move, we're focusing on the lateral movement. Now the player can move laterally two ways, with a push to the side or a crossover step if they cut real fast, crossing over and pushing away. We're going to show what this may look like here, and it looks like this.